Hello. Today I'll be talking about two child development theories. First one will be called Erickson's Psychosocial Development, and next one will be called SocialEmotional Development. They both have their differences and similarities, but I look forward to discussing those. I am on a 15-minute time span, so bear with me as I try to condense both presentations and touch on a lot of the main points, okay? First one is Erickson's Psychosocial Development. Eric's framework basically revolved around understanding the needs of young people in relation to society, kind of what helps them learn and later make contributions to their society. He touched on a few things. He emphasized the emergence of self, the search for one's individual identity. It has to do with their relationships, and eventually their identity is also molded not only by the relationships, but the role of culture throughout life. Also, he did discuss that it regarded development as a passage throughout interdependent series of stages, particular goal, concerns, accomplishments, and danger. He also suggested that an individual does face, not all the time, developmental crisis, but as soon as they find that solution, it's kind of finding their balance between the way they respond to extreme situations as an individual. 4 stages that he mainly touches on is moratorium, which is these are the stages that he studies from childhood all the way to a young adult. Moratorium, or even in adulthood, it's kind of the explorations of others' beliefs, religions, and values, but along with the exploration or touching into different aspects that you didn't grow up with, it is the delay in commitment. It's kind of a gradual exploration. You don't commit to it, but you do explore it. Next is identity achievement. They rarely meet identity achievement, the sense that you know who you are as a person, you know where you stand in your beliefs and your morals, but that rarely happens after high school. He mentions even much less after college, because you got all this gained knowledge and all you were open to all these different environments and different aspects of life. But it's after exploring realistic options and the individual is committed to pursuing them. Identity foreclosure, that's the automatic acceptance of what our parents had down to us, what our culture hands down to us, with no consideration of anything else. We understand that this is the way it is, this is the way it's going to continue to be. Individuals are committed to their values, beliefs, and attitudes of the parents, and they choose to carry that on for themselves. Next step is identity diffusion. It's kind of an uncenteredness. It's a confusion of you don't know where you stand, you don't know what you believe in, and you don't know where you're even going. But he also touches on a stage called beyond the years, and that's the sense of intimacy. This is a stage where an adult forms close relationships, like we see it with his wife, with his girlfriend, with solid confidants of friends. But if that doesn't happen, it kind of results in isolation. That's a factor. It continually fights. But with that comes a sense of concern for future generations. Also the sense of integrity, which is, a sense of self-acceptance and fulfillment versus a feeling of despair. These are all 3 stages that come with the sense of intimacy, or the stage of intimacy, which is in the adulthood, where we can comprehend mentally what that stage is. We're going to touch on a couple of things that had to do with race and ethnicity identity. There is a certain stage called double consciousness in racial and ethnic identity. It's kind of a bicultural identity that has to do with students, although they're connected to their culture, or African American students are connected to their culture, Mexican students are connected to their culture, they still form that identity and carry on as a college student in studies, or different occupations as artists. There's also the multi-dimensional and flexible ethnic identities. This mainly has to do with Hispanic or Latino. They battled with where they associate themselves. Are they American because they were born here? Are they Latino or Hispanic, the way we refer to them here? Or are they their roots, their land of descendancy? Are they Mexican? Are they Puerto Rican? And they battle with different multi-dimensional identities because of their they don't know where to associate. Racial and ethnic pride. This relies in a positive self-concept about one's racial ethnic heritage, but it definitely leads to stable identity. It makes an individual have a self-concept, a good self-concept of their heritage when they are knowledgeable and secure of it. Next one, I want to touch on a pretty broad one, pretty broad and dense one, which was Black racial identity. There's 4 different stages of pre-counter where they ignore racial attitudes. There's a mutual feeling towards race, but there's also that perspective that whiteness is superior. Then we have the encounter where kind of red lights switches start turning on and they start seeing that there is institutional racism because of a personal experience they had, whether they were assaulted by a cop, they were followed around in a store, just for the attribute of being Black. Next is immersion. Immersion is a transition. It's an in-between state where a Black person wants to be the right type of, African American in their community. There's this sense to understand, to engage, whether it's with hairstyles, whether it's with cooking. And then there's the internalization, which is they're firmly connected. They know where they stand on. They know who they are. And they have a good sense. They have a strong sense of racial identity and their heritage as an African American. Then is internalization commitment, which is basically that they carry on those interests and they commit to the affairs. They're devoted to studying and knowing their culture and carrying it on. Last, we're going to touch on self-concept. Self-concept deals with knowledge and beliefs that individuals have towards each other. It is actually at the top of the hierarchy, as we will see later. It is the organizer of impressions, attitudes, beliefs of oneself, but it is not permanent. It always changes and molds as people progress through their life for different situations. Then we have the structure. It's multidimensional, but self-concept is at the top. Then we're going to have either academic or non-academic. And academic kind of deals with the intellectual part, politics, being in politics, technology, being more verbal, whereas non-academic deals with, religious affiliation, emotional stability, honest popularity, non-intellectual aspects. Then we have development of self-concept. This is the constant self-evaluation in different situations and different frames of reference. Develop self-concept of achievement. These are strongly associated to each other. There is the concept that emotional and social development self-concept is the foundation to emotional and social development. More likely, it's a very, very linked to achievements because performance in academic sports is linked to self-concept. Satisfaction or feeling good with your demonstration at a job is linked to self-concept. Next, I'm going to touch on social and emotional learning. First off is empathy, and it's just kind of putting yourself in someone else's shoes. And to my knowledge, kind of using puppets as role playing in an effective way to teach empathy. When they use puppets and they create a scenario of somebody being bullied and what somebody would do or plays, teaching empathy, how to feel towards others. Temperament is kind of characteristics we're born with. Some are naturally shy, some are naturally outspoken, some are aggressive, some are more timid. But it's basically how to cope in less than ideal situations and environments, with those characteristics. Self-efficacy is the confidence or belief that one can achieve success in a desired goal, teaching how to determine an attainable goal and reaching it, valuable component of social emotional learning. So it's not just the goal, but it's the transition of how to get there and what steps to take to achieve that specific goal as students, which is important, I would say, to tie back to self-concept. Next up is a sense of self, very close to self-concept, how we see ourselves, but not only that, our character, what morals, motivators, what likes and dislikes do we have. This develops over time. This develops through different relationships. This develops through different activities, different experiences. It definitely molds you to the sense of self or the self-concept of yourself. Emotional regulation is knowing how to socially respond to a situation and also teaching them how to express their feelings, how to calm down, the awareness of the body tension, how to dance a physical activity, all these different reactions in dealing with different situations, whether it's pressure, whether it's, fear, how to cope with it socially. Impulse control is sitting back, analyzing the situation, processing the situation, and then responding, not jumping on impulse, but rather taking turns, not interrupting, even though we're eager to say something and we want to make our point, to first assess and think through the appropriate process of the given situation. Then we have social understanding, which means just having the social skills, the social abilities to function well in society and get along with others. It's people having a better understanding of their personal, community, and world relations. Being more effective in our society is by having social understanding of these situations, whether it's knowing how to respond to a heated situation, or knowing how to stay calm or console when a student is crying. But if we don't know how to socially understand that and don't have the social skills, we can definitely make that situation a lot worse. And it looks like that is it. I did think I saw another slide here. Okay, but that concludes my presentation on the child development theories for Erickson's psychosocial development and social emotional development theory. Thank you for listening.